Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is CG Spectrum's open day, specifically for visual effects. I'm really excited to be here. We have quite a few really special guests and panelists here with us today, and I can't wait for you to meet them all and learn a little bit more about our courses here at CG Spectrum College. Wonderful. So let's get started here today. As I mentioned before, this is CG Spectrum College, and we are presenting our Visual Effects Open Day here today. So we are all about bringing the industry to you, and we're going to talk a little bit about our courses, and you're also going to meet some of the mentors here today. So let's get started by showing our student reel so you can see some of the amazing work that our students have done here in the past year. That was so cool. I love watching our student reels. Yeah, we're so proud of all the incredible work here. I recognize a couple of students there who have gotten jobs since they left us. So that's amazing. I love seeing new student work. All right, so let's get started here today. My name is Maxine Schnepp. I will be your host today, and I am also CG Spectrum's Career Development Manager. So in a nutshell, my job is all about helping students stand out and break into the film and games industry. I help people get jobs. And I also give a little bit of an insider's perspective into the hiring process. The last couple of jobs I had were at Technicolor, VFX, and Mr. X. I've also worked at Deluxe Animation and Stereo D in the past. And some of the projects I've worked on are Blade Runner 2049, War of the Planet of the Apes, Spider-Man Homecoming, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Doctor Strange, and a bunch of other awesome stuff. I've also worked on some pretty cool Canadian content that is maybe slightly less impressive than some of these titles here, but are still very important to me. And so what I really like to do is help people get an edge and use my previous knowledge of the industry to help students find work and to help support them through this process. I think it's really important here that students feel supported as they go through the school. I will also be introducing here one of our course advisors at CG Spectrum. Hey, Brenda Grajales, let us know a little bit about what you do here.
Hi, thank you, Maxine.
You're very
Hi,
welcome.
everyone. Welcome once again to our VFX Open session. I am so excited to be here with you, and hopefully we can help encourage anyone interested in pursuing an exciting career in VFX. We've had so many inquiries recently regarding our VFX courses, so I'm happy to see so many people joining us. My name is Brenda Grajales, and I'm one of the course advisors here at CG Spectrum. So I'm just going to be in the background today, replying to any questions in the chat as we go along that anyone may have regarding the different courses that we offer, any logistical questions regarding tuition and deadlines, and all of the payment options that we have available. So one thing I wanted to note is at CG Spectrum, we understand that enrolling in an online school can be a little different. So that's why we want to make your experience as seamless and stress-free as possible. My colleagues, Elena and Yan, and myself are always available to schedule a Zoom meeting with any potential students that want to discuss anything, if they have any questions or concerns. And I hope you find today's session helpful. So send in those questions, and I'm going to be here to help you guys out.
Thank you so much, Brenda. That's awesome. And a little bit of a tidbit of information. Me and Brenda used to work together. So if you're wondering whether Brenda knows about the industry, she definitely does. We've worked together at the same studio on some of those projects that I mentioned before, which is amazing. Next up, we're going to talk a little bit about our schedule today. So what we'll be talking about is who we are as a school and what to expect. I'll also be introducing some of the other panelists, which are our mentors here today who are with us. We'll also be talking next about what we teach. So we'll be talking a little bit more in depth about the FX and Compositing courses, and we'll also talk a little bit about some job opportunities that you might expect once you complete those courses. Next, we'll talk a little bit about our admissions process and how that works when you're interested in enrolling. And we'll also talk a little bit about our careers portion, where we talk about what makes us unique, our online community, and I'll go into a little bit more detail about my position here. And next, we'll also hear from our alumni. And so you'll hear directly from some of our students about their experiences here at CG Spectrum and what it was like. Next, we will do a nice portfolio review where we will be looking at a couple of reels that have been submitted to us from students. And last but not least, we have our next steps and what to expect when you enroll, how to enroll, and we'll also be talking about some prizes that we have. And finally, we have our Q&A section. So just a little reminder, if you do have some questions, it looks like we have 4 questions already, but if you do have any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to use the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen, and we'll be answering them as we go. And then some questions we'll be answering them live at the end during the Q&A session. So let's get started here. So CG Spectrum was founded 10 years ago as of this year, which is super exciting. I'm happy to be here by our 2 founders, Nick Frieden and Jeff Pepper. They are both industry veterans who worked in the animation industry, and they decided to start this school to help people get a better head start with their careers. So super happy to be working with them, and they have such a wealth of knowledge for the industry because they worked in it too, just like all of our mentors. Next, in about 2017, we became a Houdini certified school. Then in 2019, we became a Rookies certified school. In 2021, that's this year, we've had a lot of change. So we became an academic partner, and we were the first online school to become an official Unreal academic partner. So that's pretty special for us, as no other online school had that at the time. And we are also now authorized as an Unreal training center, which is pretty exciting. And today we are now a world-class international training school where all of our graduates are sought after for their technical skills and job readiness. So pretty exciting transitions, especially in the last couple of years, where we've really stepped it up and made sure that our course content is the top of the top, best of the best. So as such, our graduates are at top studios around the world. When you get the best training, you get the best jobs. So we have some students at Epic Games, MPC, Industrial Light and Magic, Blue Sky Studios, Pixar animation, Ubisoft, and more. So if you are interested in working at some of these companies or maybe some other similar ones, you should definitely check us out. And next, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the benefits of studying at CG Spectrum. So first of all, we offer personalized job-focused career training and support. So a lot of that is part of my job, but we also have other people like your mentors and department heads and even other students within our network supporting you to help you make the right choices and find the right path for your career. We also have flexible class scheduling and payment plans available because we understand that a lot of the students who come to our school are professionals or they have other obligations or other jobs during the day. So we like to work with people and make sure that we have the most flexible options for their learning path. Next, we also have some live weekly Q&A calls with your mentor and recorded video critiques. So that makes it even easier to get the support that you need and also learn on your own schedule and at your own pace. We have access to industry insights and networking opportunities within our community and also from our mentors who are located all over the world working at some top class studios right now. And if you haven't figured it out already, we are 100% online. So you can study remotely from anywhere all over the world as long as you have Wi-Fi and a good computer. We consider ourselves to be hands-on education. And what that means is that we support you along the way. So it's not so much about finishing assignment and getting it done. It's about learning and getting feedback as you go. So you can start to develop your skills with the support of a mentor and other people in the community. And speaking of mentors, you will get mentorship from industry pros. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a later slide, but it's really exciting to be working with people and learning from people who are currently working in the industry. And within our community, we have a ton of other students and industry experts. So even though you have one mentor assigned to you for your class, you have access to so many other mentors and other professionals in the industry within our dedicated community. And last but not least, we have private one-on-one or small group classes. Even our small group classes are micro. There is a maximum of 4 students per class. So whatever option you pick, you know that you're going to have enough time with your mentor to get some dedicated, personalized support. So speaking of our mentors, here are some of the people who are working with us. But in addition to these 6, we have now over 150 mentors on our roster. So that is 150 people working all over the world at some top class studios and AAA game studios. So with your mentor, you get direct access to industry experts like Jason Gottlieb. And you also have carefully vetted industry professionals who have worked at major studios. So every time we hire someone, we make sure that they are going to be top of their class and they are very knowledgeable on the topics that they're teaching. A lot of our mentors have also earned awards and accolades working on your favorite feature films and AAA games. And as such, they are well-established, well-connected, and incredibly talented. We'll be looking at one of their reels later today. After enrolling, you are matched with one of these industry professionals, and we make sure that the schedules match up as well. And the mentors support you with live weekly calls, recorded video critiques of your assignments, and valuable industry insights based on real-world studio experience, which is pretty exciting. And last but not least, our mentors are based all over the world, covering most time zones. So if you think that you're in a remote place, I guarantee you that we have a mentor in another similar place like that. So it's not just people located in LA and New York. These are people that are located all over the world, just like everyone here. As we saw in the chat, a lot of our people watching today are all over the world, which is pretty cool. So next I'll go into some little introductions. So first off, we have Daniel here, who is our manager of VFX. Hey, Daniel, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, guys. Hey, thanks, Maxine. My name's Daniel Hourigan. I'm the manager of VFX here at CG Spectrum, and I'm also the head of FX, the Houdini FX courses. What that means is that I oversee the entire VFX course between Comp and Houdini. I'm also responsible for developing content and creating, the shot for instance, that's in the background here, creating content that then the students will use in their courses and in their tutorials. Prior to being a teacher and a mentor at CG Spectrum, I was a lead effects artist at Method Studios here in Melbourne, where I live. And I've worked at studios all over the world, predominantly in film, also TV, but I also do commercials and other freelance effects work. Some of the films that I've worked on at Method have been more recently Terminator, John Wick, and Aquaman. And yeah, more recently than that, I've been working as a freelance sort of commercials effects artist. I haven't been using Houdini all my career. I switched to Houdini halfway through, which was a challenging sort of prospect for me. You know, the world sort of was, you know, very comfortable working. I was working in 3D Studio Max at the time, and all of a sudden the industry started to shift to this new great software called Houdini. And I try to bring that to my mentorship with my students and just teach them about how, you know, how you can adapt and how you can adjust from knowing one software and learning a new one as, you know, kind of in depth and technical as Houdini. And I really like mentoring at CG Spectrum. It gives me the ability to share all of the insights and all of the knowledge that I've accumulated over the years in the film industry. And yeah, I really enjoy that. I also do that publicly on a live stream that I have with CG Spectrum for me, it's every Monday morning, Australian time. And I think you can see a link down there on the slide. So if you have any sort of in-depth technical questions about Houdini that we might not necessarily be able to answer today, feel free to come along to the streams, and it's more of a, you know, more of a one-on-one chat sort of thing. So if we don't get through any, you know, sort of technical questions, feel free to come along to those, and I'm happy to answer some of those later on. That's me. I'll be talking to you guys later more about the courses.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Daniel. And it has been a pleasure working with you ever since I started here at CG Spectrum. He is such an awesome mentor, and he is always answering questions like every day in our little Slack community that we have here. Next up, we have Ben Fox. He is one of our mentors of the Houdini FX program. Ben,
hello.
Say hi. Hey there,
hi.
Ben. How's it going? Let us know a little bit about yourself.
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today. It's so exciting to see all these people here and talk about our program. I've been with CG Spectrum since the early days of the Houdini program, and it's become a very important part of my life because it's fascinating. It's a great group of people to work with and an amazing body of students to work with. You know, people who are excited about, you know, learning these skills, which are just fantastic to apply and fantastic work to do, and sort of have found this place. So I'm excited to be part of this team. What led me here, actually, before I even started doing VFX, I was actually got my undergraduate degree in theater arts, and I was doing writing and set design and acting and all sorts of strange theater art stuff in New York. And so I didn't have a technical background at all, but I did have an interest in computers even before I started doing theater arts. But I basically looked for a life change and then went back to school for 3D animation and got a master's in animation, because that was sort of the most logical transition from theater arts. And ended up getting hired at Framestore in their New York office right out of school. And so I was working at Framestore, started out as a character animator, and that was sort of where learning about storytelling, learning about sort of creating motion on screen, but always had an interest in the sort of more technical creation of motion. And I really pushed to get into the Houdini department. So I learned on the job, sort of like Daniel, where it wasn't my first thing. And so I got to learn by sort of picking the brains of industry professionals. And that is sort of what I bring as well to my teaching. And so I spent quite a few years at Framestore, and now I've actually moved to be the head of a planetarium in North Carolina, which is one of the oldest planetariums in the United States, using Houdini to create full CG content, full films, doing sort of a whole complex mix of things outside of even just the basics that we might talk about traditionally for effects.
That's so cool, Ben. I love your background because it's so different. And this is something I talk about with a lot of students is it's not always a straight path to be, a lead artist or something. And your career is so interesting, the way you went from theater to the visual effects industry, commercial work, and now at the planetarium. It's awesome. It really just shows how versatile some of these people can be once they start to learn these skills and all the different applications for them. It's not just film and games. There's so much more you can do with this information.
And
Thanks
you
so
don't
much,
need
Ben.
that like technical background. You can sort of,
Yeah.
a lot of times people think, oh, I need to be in computer science to do this sort of stuff, or really have a big math background, but that's not the case at all. You just need great mentors like us.
Yeah.
Right.
Perfect.
Thanks, everybody.
And like a good drive too. I think like
Totally.
that's so important. Just a little reminder here to ask any questions in the Q&A section of your Zoom screen. It looks like we've been answering them too. So check that Q&A box, because if you have asked a question already, there's a good chance that we've already answered it. So if you look to the answers column, you can see if we've answered some of your questions already. But let's move forward. So next we have Sean, and Sean is our department head of Nuke Compositing. Hey, Sean, let us know a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Maxine. It's a pleasure to be here. Hey, everybody. My name is Sean Amlander. I'm the department head of Nuke Compositing here at CG Spectrum. I've been with CG Spectrum for the last, the majority of the lifespan of CG Spectrum. I think 2013 was when I first started. A little bit about my background. I started out as a 3D character animator in my undergraduate degree. I started from that point and started kind of segueing into a more visual effects focus. So that was actually doing more effects-based stuff back when RealFlow was just starting to be born in the early era of Lord of the Rings, actually. So that was a pretty exciting time to be kind of working through that and learning that as I went. Then I kind of moved a little bit more into After Effects based compositing. It just started to kind of get my eye, and was really fun being able to kind of pursue more of that, kind of taking the recipe, so to speak, and taking pieces from the digital world and stuff from the live action world and kind of amalgamating it together to give this deceptive final finish that looked like it was supposed to be a photoreal image. And I got my master's in visual effects at that point, and then moved out to Los Angeles, California, working for Rhythm and Hues back then, and have since then worked my way through a number of, quite a large portion of the visual effects studios here in Los Angeles for quite a few years now. I've worked as a compositor, senior compositor, comp lead, compositing supervisor. At this point, I'm now full-time with CG Spectrum itself. But some projects prior to that I'd worked on were Star Trek Picard, some of the Star Wars movies, any number of the Marvels that were out there. Had a very small hand in that. Quite a few different opportunities have come up through the years, but through it all, it's been kind of a reoccurring pattern of love for the arts that come out of visual effects, and more specifically here in compositing. As the department head here at CG Spectrum over the compositing department, our main focus is within Nuke, just because that is one of the main and premier compositing packages here. We really do focus on not just teaching our students what they need to know, but also understanding and being able to apply that in a real world scenario. It's extremely critical that not only do you gain the technical know-how, but you also can take on and troubleshoot and come up with actual answers whenever you get a unique shot. And for compositing, every single shot is a unique shot. There's never two that are alike, even if it's in what we call a like as sequence, where there's a bunch of shots that are very similar. There's still going to be some of those gotchas that pop up. And what comes out of that is that passion and that enjoyment and that feeling of excitement where you're able to actually troubleshoot and build from that. So that's kind of my background and my love for it. And here at CG Spectrum, our mentors, every single one of them are world-class artists in and of their own right. The majority of them are full-timers that work in the industry, in the studios. So when they're bringing that work in, they're able to say, hey, student so-and-so, do this because I literally just did this 6 hours ago in the studio. It's a fascinating, exciting experience here at CG Spectrum, because for us, everything is about cutting edge, being right there at the head and pushing forward the envelope to ensure that you are prepared for a career in visual effects. So yeah, there's my bit. Great to meet you all.
Thanks so much, Sean. That was awesome. And Sean's another person who I've worked with before in the past. So it's really cool to see how some of the industry, you meet people, you never know when you're networking and people that you've worked with or people you've met over the years, you'll meet again in some capacity. So it's been really cool working with Sean here at CG Spectrum after working with him in visual effects. Next up, we have Brittany Piacente, and she is one of our mentors of VFX Compositing. Hey, Brittany, how you doing?
Hello.
Let us know a little bit about yourself. Hi.
Hey, I'd also like to join the thank train. Thank you all for showing up. I mean, that's really half the battle. I'm a senior compositor, currently working at Weta. I've been a lead compositor at every other studio that I've been at. I didn't start with compositing. When I went to school, I went for animation thinking, I want to work at Pixar and do animation. And then it turns out I am not good at animation. So I decided to start in stereo work. And from there, I went into a little bit of animation, but it was on the compositing side of it, and started to do some effects work as well. And I finally got into compositing. And from there, I've been running, full speed ahead with everything compositing. There's so much to learn from it. It's a constantly evolving program and career, really. You can go into different paths with compositing. It's not just you go for the lead position. I know a lot of people don't really like leading, but with compositing, there's so many ways to do the same thing. It's really hard to be bored. And that's kind of what I found when I was doing other paths, is that I kind of got bored. But I've been doing compositing for over 10 years, and I haven't gotten bored yet. Some stuff that I've worked on has been Loki, Viking season 6, which I'll be going over my reel towards the end of this presentation and walking you through kind of those kind of things. I've also worked on all of the new Star Wars and Guardians of the Galaxy, Black Panther, Mad Max, Blade Runner, American Gods, and many, many more. That's the really cool part about VFX, is you can work on so many different projects. And like Sean said, none of them are the same. Even something that looks like it's the exact same shot has its own problems. And we kind of help you to know what to look for and how to really have a good eye for compositing. And I think that's it for me.
Awesome. Thanks, Brittany.
Thank you.
Really, today's open day is so special for me because Brittany is another person I used to work with. And it's special to me because me and Brittany used to always talk to each other years ago about like, what's next and what should I do with my career now? Even once you're already working in the industry, it's so important to have colleagues, friends, and mentors even out in life who can you can talk to and ask questions and say, hey, Brittany, like, what do you think I should do next? What job should I go for after this? And me and Brittany still to this day talk about stuff like that. So I love having these people here with me. And I think you are all going to love them too. So next, I'm going to talk a little bit about our educational offerings and curriculum. So we'll go into a little bit more detail about some of these courses next, but here are some of the potential options that you could go through with our VFX courses. So the first pathway is taking the Foundations of VFX diploma. So it is 9 months total. There are 3 terms, and we kind of recommend about 40 hours per week on your course material to really get the most out of your learning experience and make sure that you're grasping everything properly. So this is like taking a full-time course, and this is not like watching tutorials. These are real courses with a lot of material, and it takes quite a bit of time to really get up and running and feel comfortable in these courses. Upon completion, you will get a diploma. The next pathway is our Intro to Houdini FX, which follows into the Houdini FX diploma. So upon completion, you will receive a diploma if you continue through the full Houdini FX diploma. And for both of those courses, we recommend at least 20 hours per week. But as I like to tell our students, the more time you put in, the faster you'll see your skill level improve. So 20 hours a week is, in my opinion, about a minimum. Some people do a little bit less, but that's the minimum that we recommend to really get the most out of these programs. And lastly, we have pathway number 3, which is our compositing pathway. So it can start with the Intro to Nuke Compositing, which is 1 term, 3 months total, where you'll get a certificate upon completion. And then following that, if you want to keep going, you can get a diploma by taking our 3-term, 9-month long diploma course. So next, we'll bring back some of our department heads to talk a little bit about the courses in a little bit more detail. So first, we'll talk about foundations of VFX, and we have Daniel here with us, and he's going to talk a little bit about the program and what to expect.
Cool, thanks, Maxine.
You're welcome.
All right, so the Foundations of VFX is really a course for beginners, people interested in visual effects. Maybe they're not really sure which way they want to go. Like Brittany was saying, I got into the industry. I thought I wanted to be an animator, and I sucked at animation, but I didn't know until I tried it. And then, I found effects as a way of animating through, simulation. But this course gives you a taste, an introduction to many of the facets that you will experience in the visual effects industry. So there are 2 streams that you can go through with the foundations course. You have the animation stream and you have the modeling stream, where you can learn either how to animate characters, how to animate bouncing balls and those kind of things, how to animate, essentially. And then you also have the modeling stream, where you learn how to actually make the models, maybe make the characters that you're then going to animate, or make cars or spaceships or props, or whatever it might be. So you get to choose between those 2 things. So there are 2 terms of that. There are 2 terms of the animation or modeling streams, and then the final term is when you come to us, to Ben and myself, or the other effects mentors, and we take you through Houdini and also introduce you to the idea of compositing your effects with live action backgrounds, and just a bit about how visual effects works in terms of layering up and creating projects. And that's obviously my specialty, and where I kind of lie. And that last term is the same term that you get on the next slide, which is our introduction to Houdini effects. So you can, if you're just really interested in effects only, maybe you have prior experience doing a bit of 3D animation or 3D modeling. Even if you don't, we kind of ask that people have maybe a little bit of a background in creating stuff on the computer, but it's not essential. This will give you a complete overview into how to use Houdini, from the very basic kind of introduction to creating some really, really cool effects. And it's not just for people that have never used Houdini before. It might be for someone that has been struggling with Houdini and really wants a good foundational understanding of how it works and how to create some awesome effects. We don't go into like extreme depth with the introduction course, because we save that stuff for the following course, which is the advanced Houdini effects diploma. And that just builds on the knowledge that we've learned in the introduction, or if you've been studying on your own, entry into the advanced courses is through a portfolio review. So if you have prior experience, you can submit to skip the introduction course and go straight into the advanced, but you have to prove that you have knowledge of Houdini, that you are grasping those foundational concepts. Otherwise, we would ask you to go through the introduction course. And this is where we really focus on creating epic, sort of effects, and really making sure that you understand how Houdini works, because it is a complex software, and how you can create whatever you want. We don't focus on just reproducing tutorial results. It's more about you working with the mentor, making sure that you understand if you have an idea or if someone gives you a challenge to create something, that you can do it and you can do it reliably and you can do it and sort of know that you understand how this whole thing works. We also introduce a bit of nuke. It's not a compositing course by any means, but effects and comp are kind of tied together in the visual effects world. So it's important to understand how those two things relate and how you can take your effects and composite them, or, you know, even prepare them for a compositor. Ben, is there anything that you'd like to add that I haven't sort of covered?
I mean, you've given a great overview, and I think it's good to get a sense of the scope of the training. And I think one of the big things I always put on this is, you know, a lot of times people come to us having completed a few tutorials here and there online and tried to piece together their own education sort of through tutorials, but without that sort of cohesive approach that we put on our content, it can be hard, because in one tutorial they show you how to make rigid body simulations in one way, in another tutorial it's totally different. So that can be so overwhelming when you're trying to learn Houdini. But the thing is we've seen all those methods, and if not, we don't really even have to tell you one is better or worse, but we can sort of compare and contrast those methods and really have a much more sort of cohesive sort of plan in teaching Houdini. And I think that's the difference, and that's the importance of a program like the ones you're outlining.
Absolutely. And I mean, you bring a good point, and that is the kind of major thing with our school in general is, you know, you're paired with an industry mentor. So we've been through it all. We've struggled through Houdini, we switched to it, we learned it, and we know the tips and tricks that we've been using in our day-to-day jobs. And instead of you kind of having to discover that stuff by going through it for 5 or 10 years, we just go, hey, here's the tip, here's the trick, here's the thing that the industry people do. You don't have to do that thing, which takes 10 hours. Just do this thing. It'll be done in 2 minutes, you know? So yeah, that is really the benefit of, you know, being paired with someone that has that experience and has been through it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you so much, guys. Next up, we have our new compositing courses. So we have Sean here, who's going to talk a little bit about those. Sean, take it away.
All right, thanks, Maxine. So we have new compositing here, which is the intro to the actual compositing diploma. What you gain out of the introduction to new compositing is pun not intended, it's the introduction to not only the software, but also the career. We focus on giving you opportunities to not only kind of learn the interface of the software, but you're also going to be gaining an insight into what a definition of compositing might be. A lot of artists come into the visual effects or just the post-production world thinking, you know, for example, there's animation. You know, you look at how many colleges, for example, offer an animation degree, and there's nothing wrong with that. But some of the lesser known career paths, such as compositing, are something that you don't find commonplace outside of our industry. So at random aside, you know, you type in the word compositing into Microsoft Word, it's probably going to actually try to autocorrect composting, completely polar opposite of what we do. But in this introduction to new compositing, we're showing you and introducing to you the idea that you're not only taking computer generated assets, animated characters, for example, or effects footage, or any number of other CG or computer generated rendered passes, and you're going to be integrating those into live action footage. Live action footage being the stuff that was shot on camera on set. So you've seen some of those behind the scenes of various movies sometimes where they show, you know, your actors on a green screen, for example, or, you know, going back a little bit to 300 when it was all shot on green screen, basically with just very minimal digital sets. That was actually, or live action sets, because then all that was brought in and built in a digital environment using keying technology that was available at that time. But fast forwarding to now, everything that we do as a compositor is taking that green screen footage, taking that computer generated footage, blending it together into a live action or computer generated photoreal image. And in this introduction to Nuke compositing, that's the focus, where we want you to gain an understanding, an idea of what this career potentially could offer. One of the kind of background questions that I a lot of times ask potential students is, have you ever used Photoshop? Have you ever used Adobe After Effects? A lot of times people know what Photoshop is. So for me, that is a very easy and direct segue into what we do as compositors. Because in Photoshop, you're digitally touching up imagery, but it's just one single image. In compositing, what we're doing is we're taking, typically on average, 24 images per second of footage that you see in a movie or a TV show. And we're manipulating those images in a linear fashion over an entire length of a shot. So to take all that and understand kind of where it comes from, build that foundation and allow you a successful completion in the introduction to Nuke compositing is what builds that framework and an understanding in this course. And then moving into the Nuke compositing diploma, one of the major focuses at this point is not just kind of understanding a background in compositing and also understanding sort of how to work your way through Nuke, the software that we focus on. It's also gaining a broader understanding of various intermediate on up to advanced techniques and developments that are required for you to be able to succeed as a compositor. It's also a focus at this point where you're not just being taught all the kind of behind the scenes tools that you're wanting to use as a compositor, but it's also a focus on wanting to understand how you're supposed to apply that. So as mentioned earlier, we were talking about Brittany and myself when we did the intro, our focus is wanting to ensure that you can apply this to every single shot, because the cool thing about compositing, it never gets boring. You can learn, you can learn how to use the tools, but applying those tools, no two compositors will ever build a shot identically the same. The final outcome might look the same, but the building of it using this compositing package will always be different. It's an incredible thing when you open up what we call a Nuke script. So in Nuke, that's the visual layout of what you're doing to accomplish that shot. And opening it up, and every single artist that ever does this, they all have their own unique fingerprint and kind of look to how they build it. And it's a really cool opportunity to not only interact with people, but you're also learning how to apply that. We teach, obviously, Nuke, which is the premier compositing package in our industry right now, as well as Mocha. Mocha is an additional software package that is fairly often utilized as an addition to compositing. So we obviously allow that. We include so many different focuses: rotoscoping, digital painting, keying, some light scripting, how to light a scene digitally in comp. And eventually, when we near the completion of the diploma, the last third of the course is focused on you building your portfolio reel. Your portfolio is the vital piece that allows you the opportunity to be able to actually show who you are, and quite literally is your resume when you're applying for the job. You're going to build your own custom shots. You're going to be building from a library that's provided to be able to end up with an outcome that is unique and identifiable back to you and you alone. And ultimately is what you're going to take to be able to drop into when you're applying for a compositing, not composting, job in our industry. Brittany, did you have anything maybe I missed you'd like to jump in on?
Just, really backing up what you were talking about. There's so much to learn, not just on the technical side. The technical side is its own beast. But I think that with the mentors that we have, we give you an idea of maybe where else to look for different ideas to apply to your comp. So it's not just one way to do one thing, but maybe check out this other site, or check out this video, or check out this person's work. And we really like to share information between the entire department and other departments as well, working with Daniel and the FX team. But I think that, you covered mostly what we would be doing. And I think that's just an additional part that I think that would really benefit other students when deciding if they want to take this course, is that we're not just giving you click this button and this does this. We tell you the why, and we tell you other resources that you can use to make your comps better.
Totally awesome, Brittany. And one thing I do want to add into this, and this is on a very personal level, I've heard it so many times from others that I feel like it's worth saying. The compositing course for those that are in compositing, so many times that have gone through this, as well as our mentors, have said this is the course that we wish we had been taught when we were going in school. We wish we had been provided these means and these outcomes to be able to succeed. So many times, and I think a lot of people as artists can say this, so many times you've gone through your career and sort of had to take left and right turns to be able to eventually land in the career path that you end up doing as a lifetime job. And one of the things that is just so amazing about this is that this is built from the ground up, not only from industry professionals, but also from the input of the industry as a whole, to ensure that you are able to succeed from the beginning to end in a career of compositing without having to trip and kind of make those different directional changes before you end up as a compositor.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sean and Brittany, for those details. And I think that's a perfect segue for me to talk a little bit about some job opportunities that students can expect once completing some of these courses. So as an effects artist, if you took the Houdini FX course, you could be an effects artist for film. You could also work in the game industry as an effects artist. And same thing for compositing. We know about being a compositor for film and TV. You can also be a compositor for advertising and commercials. Or even music videos. There's so many different applications here and options for you depending on where you live. And you can also eventually work your way up to being a compositing supervisor down the line. Next, we also have some jobs like being a lead VFX artist. So these are some people who are more generalist types who maybe know some VFX and compositing. And so people who know more than one program. So this is where the Foundations of VFX program would come in pretty well. Or if you decide to take the Houdini diploma and the Nuke diploma, then you can be a generalist and sort of know a little bit of both programs, which a lot of studios are looking for, especially some of the smaller ones. Next, you can also be a roto artist or a paint artist. So that's a great entry-level career option for those of you who are studying or considering to study the Nuke compositing course. And last but not least, one of the other job opportunities you could expect is being a technical director. So if you're someone who likes a little bit of scripting, or you're someone who is more technically minded on the creative to technical kind of spectrum, then that might be the job for you. And again, these are just a couple of the job opportunities out there. There are many other different titles that are available, many other industries that you can consider. And so what we've done is we've actually put together this amazing VFX career guide. And so we're going to be sharing that with you after this event. We'll be sending straight to your inbox a PDF document that has a ton more information about all of these jobs and some more, and what some of your career path options might be in the future, should you choose to take one of these courses. So next, we are going to be talking about the admissions process. So first, we're going to talk a little bit about the application process. So what you'll do is fill out the application form at cgspectrum.com/apply now. And our admissions team will be in touch within 2 to 3 business days. And after your enrollment is confirmed, they're going to ask you a couple of questions, or maybe they'll answer some questions that you might have in your application form. After that, you'll be matched with your industry mentor, and you'll receive your weekly Q&A call time and get access to the student portal and private CG Spectrum community. And I believe one of the questions that was asked here in the chat was, do I need any prior software experience? So I'm here to answer it for you right now. In our introduction and foundations courses, no experience is required. So those introduction courses or introductory courses are designed assuming that you don't know anything about these programs. You have never touched them or opened them. Obviously, if you have used them a little bit or have used some similar programs, then it'll only benefit you, and you'll maybe have a little bit of an easier time taking these classes, but we've developed them in a way that no experience is required. So I hope that answers your question. I forget who asked it, but someone out there was asking about that. That being said, our advanced diplomas, there is an intermediate knowledge of software required. And so if you are looking to skip the introduction course and go straight into advanced, you will be required to submit a reel or a portfolio of your work to us in order to be accepted into the advanced diploma program without having taken the intro course. So just something to keep in mind if you're someone who maybe already works in the industry and you have a little bit of experience, that's great. You can maybe skip a step and go straight to the advanced diploma. Or if you've taken one of our past courses before. So if you've already taken the VFX Foundations course, then you may be able to move straight into the advanced diploma program, but just fill out an application form, let us know what your situation is, and we'll be able to answer all of your questions for you, depending on your unique situation. And just so you know, the software you'll be learning is included in the cost of your tuition. That's fantastic. I remember the school I went to, I had to buy the whole Adobe Creative Suite separately on my own dime. That was so annoying. And so here, everything that you'll need, all of the tools will be included. The only thing that isn't included is your computer, which you have to come to us with. There are more specific prerequisites for each course on the individual course pages if you check out cgspectrum.com. So if you have any other, questions about whether you're eligible or what you need in order to start the program, you can check that out on our website, or you can email us and you can get in touch with our admissions team at admissions@cgspectrum.com. Next, we'll watch a little video to see how it works and what you can expect, week to week when you're studying at CG Spectrum.
If you're looking to turn your creative passion for film and games into a successful career as a digital artist in the entertainment industry, choosing the right school can be a challenging decision. But imagine if you had access to industry mentors who have worked on blockbuster films and best-selling video games, supporting you every step of the way. When you enroll at CG Spectrum, you'll be connected to the most talented artists around the world who are excited to share their years of knowledge, ensuring that you are highly trained, well-connected, and prepared for your new career. Here's how it works. At the start of each week, you'll log into your learning management system where you review lesson requirements, watch your video lectures, and get started creating the first pass of your assignment. Next, you'll upload your files and meet with your mentor for a live midweek Q&A session to review your work, problem-solve issues, and discuss any questions you might have. Mentors work within your file-solving problems in real time, demonstrating their professional workflow to ensure that you don't make the same mistake twice. After the live Q&A session, you'll have until the end of the week to address your mentor's notes and submit another pass for a final video critique, ensuring that your work is portfolio ready. During your time at CG Spectrum, you'll have access to a curriculum designed by industry-leading artists, custom created video content and supportive materials, as well as free educational software, access to our student learning portal and online community where you'll get feedback on your work and grow your professional network. By the end of the course, you'll have learned the skills necessary to produce a polished professional portfolio and have the confidence in knowing that you have what it takes to succeed as an artist in the film and game industry. So if you're interested in becoming part of the next generation of production-ready artists and joining alumni at major studios all over the world, let us help you find your pathway to success. To be the best, learn from the best at CG Spectrum.
So next, we're going to talk a little bit about what makes us unique. And our CG Spectrum community, to me, is the most important part of this whole school. You're learning all of this information, but really it's about getting that extra support from not just your mentor, but other mentors in the industry and also other students in the industry too. So within our CG Spectrum community, so this is all located on Slack. So we have a private Slack community that is dedicated to CG Spectrum students. And And that's where you can share information about jobs, internships, and contests. I am constantly sharing job information. We also have job boards that we update every single day. So every day there are new job opportunities that you can check out. And I also share internship opportunities, contests. We also host live events about career opportunities and other information about the industry. So sometimes we have special guests, we have people working in the industry telling us about how they finished that last project. And I also host exclusive events for students looking to apply to different internship opportunities. So for example, I recently just hosted 2 events, one with ILM for their Jedi Academy and another event with Epic Games about their internship opportunities that are coming up in 2022. So our students have first access to some of these amazing studios, and they get dedicated meetings directly with the people who work at these studios, so they can ask their questions and learn more about what they need to prepare if they want to apply for those positions. As I mentioned before, we got those job boards on Slack, so those are updated every single day. And you also have the ability to share work and ideas with other students on Slack. So this is so important because, as I said at the beginning of this presentation, it's not really about just finishing something or getting that diploma. It's really about getting better as an artist and getting better as a professional and improving your skills one little step at a time. And so having the ability to share your work, not just with your mentor, but with other students and people in our community, that's going to help you get better even faster, because you'll be getting feedback from multiple different people, really crowdsourcing your feedback from people all over the world and professionals who work at different studios. And so that's really going to help you get that cutting edge if you're looking to apply for a job in the future at one of those big AAA studios. And last but not least, we have relationships and partnerships with external studios and organizations. So not just the studios that we've worked at in the past, but other studios. We're contacting them and we're getting information, asking them, hey, is this course good enough? If, we taught someone all of these different skills, are those things that you would look for when hiring a junior artist? Not to mention all of the studios that the mentors work at. We're constantly getting feedback from our mentors about how we can improve our courses. And as I said before, we also have exclusive events. And so I'm constantly talking to recruiters and people who work at some of these studios to get some more information directly to our students every week. And next, to talk a little bit about your mentor. So some of the things that you can take advantage of with your mentor is you might get specific creative and technical guidance. So this happens every single week during your Q&A sessions, and you also have access to your mentor on Slack. So within that Slack community, you can chat with your mentor all the time. They'll get back to you whenever they have time. Always got to keep in mind that our mentors are working full-time jobs in the industry. That's why they're so cool. And so sometimes you might need to wait a couple hours until they're ready to respond, but they will respond to you. Next, another thing that your mentor can help you with is give you portfolio and project critique from a more technical and creative perspective. And so if you want to make sure that you are finessing something until it's perfect and you find any issues or errors and make sure that your, effect simulations or, what you're doing with your shot compositing is top notch. So you can get that feedback from your mentor. And another thing that you can do with your mentor, which I'm always pushing with our students, is ask them about, some other things. So not just how your shot's doing or how your projects are going, but you also have the ability to talk to your mentor about your career path and work expectations. You can ask them things like, hey, what was your first job? Or, how did you make the jump from junior artist to, lead artist? Like, how did that happen? Or, do you have any recommendations for someone trying to get their foot in the door? How did you get your foot in the door? We had a little bit of a background of our panelists here today, like, Brittany and Sean and Ben and Daniel. And as you saw and as you heard them speak, you could see that all of them had, these different career paths, and they started somewhere, ended up somewhere else. And so hearing those personal stories from people and your mentor is super important because it helps to give you perspective on what you can do. And they can give you advice about careers as well. So it doesn't have to be just about the technical and creative knowledge that they can share. And next is our career development manager. That's me. Oh my God, it's me. And so some things that I can help you with as a student is I can give you some one-on-one session time to talk about different career options. And I'll ask you questions about, your interests, any previous work experience, some relevant skills you might have, education, location, all of these sorts of things that make you unique. And so that's why I like to do one-on-one sessions with my students, because I think it's really important to get a clear picture of who our students are so that I can find a way to help them better. Another thing that I can help with is personalized job application help. So I think I just opened my downloads folder earlier today, and it is jam-packed full of student resumes and cover letters that I am always reviewing every single week. And so when someone is ready to start job hunting and applying to an internship or a full-time position, they will send their resume to me first, and I will look it over, give them some tips before they apply so they feel totally confident that they're putting their best foot forward. I can also provide a portfolio critique from more of a recruiter or manager perspective. So when you think about what your mentor could provide, so they're giving you a little bit more of a technical or creative feedback on your portfolio in Reel, I will be giving a little bit more of kind of organizational feedback. Are you presenting yourself clearly? Are you showcasing your skills in a way that is, evident to the viewer, and giving you a critique based on those types of things. I can also give a job description review. So if you do have a particular job that you're interested in applying for, we can look over it together and we can chat about it and decide whether this is a good opportunity and whether you should go for it, and maybe talk about what you might need to prepare in order to put your best foot forward. I also help with some guidance with networking sites like LinkedIn. So a lot of people are a little bit scared, or they don't really get the point of LinkedIn, or maybe they just look at it and think, oh, this looks boring. I don't want to spend any time on here. But LinkedIn is unfortunately, or fortunately, one of the industry standard kind of social media sites when it comes to our industry. And so if you want to get yourself out there, you need to make sure that you're presenting yourself well on a site like LinkedIn. And so I can give you some tips on how to use that site to its fullest extent, and how to present yourself clearly and grow your network and build your network. One thing that I love doing, this is probably the favorite part of my job, is hosting mock interviews. So whenever I have a student who just got a job, a job interview, and so they've applied to a job and they say, oh my God, Maxine, I just got an interview. What should I do? And so I'll meet with them and do a little bit of a mock interview. And so I pretend to completely not know them. So I'll start a Zoom call being like, hello, Daniel, nice to meet you. And then I'll ask them a bunch of questions that are very typical for the industry. And they also have an opportunity to ask me questions. So I really treat it like a real interview, and it's a lot of fun. And then once the interview portion is over, then we sort of end scene and we talk about how you did as a student in your interview. And we talk about what you answered well. We talk about what you maybe didn't answer well, or anything that you could improve upon, so that when you do your real interview, you feel a little bit more confident and you can put your best foot forward. Last but not least, I'm also collecting student portfolios. So I have a little student portfolio database where I share your information with potential employers. And I know privacy and security is a hot topic nowadays, so don't worry. I don't share any personal information, just the basics of what can help you get a job, which is your portfolio or link to your Reel, your email address, your relevant skills, and your location. And I just put your general location, the country that you're in. I don't put your full address. So it's just the basics so that people can contact you if they like your portfolio and if you fit their role. So I often have studios and companies coming to me and asking, hey, do you have a good junior nuke compositor, or do you have any good junior effects artists? And I can send them your portfolio if you sign up once you finish your course. So next, I'm going to share a little video with you where you can meet some of our alumni and learn a little bit about their experience with the school. So check it out.
My name is Pietro Trizzullo and I studied Foundation of VFX and Game Design and Advanced 3D Modeling, and I'm currently working as a freelance 3D modeler and character artist for games and as a teaching assistant here at the school.
So my name is Noor Villings. I studied the game art and animation course here at CG Spectrum, and then I got a job in the industry. I work as a junior 3D artist at Replica, which is a character company here in the Netherlands.
I'm Loris Casgrande. I'm studying right now the game design courses at CG Spectrum. Yeah, I'm working as a game designer at Stormine Games.
Hi, my name is Reid Yerian. I've just recently finished a diploma in Nuke Visual Effects Compositing. I'm currently now working at a visual effects studio called Stage 23 VFX in Sydney.
I always loved games. I played them since I remember, but I wasn't considering this as a possible path for my career before I came across CG Spectrum.
There are so many schools out there, and I was specifically looking for a school that had very individual schedules where I could do like a small class or maybe even individual classes. I wanted to make sure that I want to get my money's worth. And I really wanted to make sure, like, okay, whatever I'm going to put into this dream, I want to get it out of it like triple the amount when it comes to like experience and stuff that I'm learning.
CG Spectrum was remote, and also I looked at the mentors and they seemed very expertise.
All of their mentors are currently working as professionals in the industry, so I was wanting to basically get a place where all the knowledge that I was getting was up to date.
CG Spectrum helped me develop as an artist in a few ways. Firstly, I gained the confidence to share my work. Secondly, because of the way the courses are structured, I felt like I was given the means to pursue my career path and achieve my end goal.
CG Spectrum definitely helped me develop as an artist, understanding what it takes. It's not only technical skills that you require, it's a mixture of soft skills, understanding how to deal with feedback.
It really helped me approach challenges with a new mind, a challenge mind that okay, I am overcome this and I try to do my best.
I do really feel like one of the strengths of CG Spectrum is their mentors. They're all professionals that have years of experience in the industry, and they were always there to support me and give critiques, and they were always a source of motivation and knowledge.
That they talk a lot about what's happening in the industry, so not necessarily the stuff that you're making for school, but actually what they expect of you when you actually enter the industry, because it's very different than studying, and I think it's very important to be very prepared for that.
The online community of CG Spectrum is amazing. It's friendly and welcoming, and it really feels like a safe space where you can start and move your first steps into getting other people's feedback and getting used to critiques, which is very important.
There's a huge community on Slack. So they're all people who have a similar mindset to you. They want to work in this industry. They want to get there no matter what. They love what they're doing. It's really nice to have people around you that are doing the same thing and are at least as focused as you are, or just as curious as you are, and people that maybe in the future you will work with.
There are the community that is very supportive. There are the TA that help you if you have some problem. All the mentors, you are always free to contact them. There are also other type of meetings sometimes on mental health and Maxine Happy Hour, where you can chat and meet people.
My experience with the online community was really good. Actually, one of the hesitations that I had slightly about learning online was not being able to be there and meet fellow students. I was pleasantly surprised at how awesome everyone was and willing to help each other and share information. And then I basically realized that even though I wasn't physically in a classroom, my peers that I was starting to network with were already located all around the world. So it turned out to be much better.
Start on your portfolio while you're studying, because you want to have something to show for when you graduate. Make small challenges for yourself. Do weekly drills like the rookies, or do any other competitions like the MSI Creator Awards.
I know that as an artist, you pour your heart and soul into your work, and sometimes getting feedback can hurt sometimes. And you just need to remember that it's not personal. You need to learn soft skills as well, and that's more to do with like how to communicate with people. I know sometimes it's difficult, it's a bit shy, but you know, just you got to lean into the pain, lean into the things that make you feel uncomfortable until you do become comfortable with them.
If I have to describe my experience at CG Spectrum in short, I think it is fantastic. I really think the school is try to give you all the preparation you need to actually start work. It's not only learning something theoretically, you are ready to work as soon as you exit the school. I can confirm that is the good school.
I love seeing my old students. And they mentioned two things that I want to talk about before we move on. One of which is our TAs. So I haven't mentioned that yet, but our TAs are our technical assistants. And so they are people who are either current or alumni students who work with us here at the school part-time, and they assist the new students with their work. And so they are also on the Slack community. They host events, they do challenges and contests, and they're reading your messages every day and helping you out. So if just in case you didn't have enough support from your mentor and your classmates, there are also dedicated people who are there to answer your questions, technical questions, creative questions. People are even asking careers questions in our Slack community. So nothing is there's no such thing as a bad question, and we love to help people out with our big community. And another thing I want to mention is one of the people you saw in that video, Noor, the blonde woman, she said that she was working at Replica, which is a design company in the Netherlands. But since we recorded this video, she is actually moved on in her career and already gotten another job opportunity. And so she is now at Mr. X in Montreal. And so she's been talking to me, for over the past year. She graduated in January of this year, and we still keep in touch and we talk all the time. So every time she has a careers question, it doesn't end after graduation. I'm still here to bounce ideas off of. And so when she was ready to make another career move for a bigger opportunity, they even relocated her from the Netherlands here to Canada. And so I got to talk with her about that and help her with that process. So even after you graduate, even after you do get your first job, we can help you out with stuff like that. So, all right. So moving on, we're going to move into our reel review section. Take it away, Sean.
All right. So we're going to start with one of our current students already enrolled and actively in the compositing diploma program. This is a reel that she's put together based upon the Introduction to Compositing course. So this will give you you all an idea of what kind of projects you might see in the Introduction to Compositing. So that was a great example of one of our active students reels as it speaks right now. And one of the things that we, as was kind of briefly mentioned, but I do want to emphasize a little bit, is that our focus in this school as a whole is preparing you for a career in this industry. What that means is, again, not just learning the technical, but also experiencing as close as possible to what it's like in the real world. One of the major aspects of the real world that we call it the real world, but going out and actually working as a professional, is that you are going to be obviously adding in your work and applying for jobs, showing your work and acting as basically a visual version of your resume. This is what the employers, more specifically the studios, visual effects studios, are going to be looking at to be able to say, this is the person we want to hire, or you know what, this isn't maybe the job that this specific person might be best suited for at this moment. In the studio environment, a large portion of our mentors are or have been supervisory roles. What that means, one of the specific job tasks that come in that is they will sit and go through a large quantity of demo reels specific to job hires that are actively being embarked upon when we have larger projects in-house that require additional hires, or we're just needing to staff up in general. So these demo reels are vital in that category, because what you are showing is not only a calling card, but a first and very important first impression to potential future employers. So one of the things that we do in the courses, especially focused towards the end in the diploma courses, is offer demo reel reviews. Your mentor will be giving you actual feedback based upon their own personal experiences of the industry, saying, hey, maybe you should adjust this, maybe you should adjust that, trying to fine tune that demo reel as much as possible to hopefully get your name at the top of the stack when you are applying for that job. So as for example, on a personal level, as a compositing supervisor or someone that might be reviewing the demo reels, I would go in and sit down and go through a significant amount of these reels, and at the end of it, be picking out specific ones that not only jumped out to me, but also stood out in a way that made me want to say, this is a person I might want to work with in the future. Let's give them a call. So this specific demo reel review that we're doing right now is very similar in the aspect that we are wanting to ensure everybody gets proper feedback in these courses so that they are best prepared visually. So we just showed a reel. Let's just go through. The first note I would give on this shot is I am actually, and this is nitpicking, this is getting into the specifics. I'm actually seeing just a little bit of a white line on our actor's chin right here. You can see right there. That would be something that I would request be fixed and corrected, because we want to ensure that illustrating green screen materials is always as clean as possible on the edges. Brittany, I'm putting you on the spot.
No, that's totally fine. The main thing with any kind of green screen or blue screen is that gives it away is edges. So that one little piece may be something that you nitpick now, but that would take someone out of the scene if they see something where they're like, I don't think that that's right. And so for me with driving comps, a huge reason to really focus on these kind of comps is actually the interaction of the background with the car. So inside of the car, seeing highlights fluctuating, or interaction with the lighting on the actual green screen key, as long as it's within those boundaries of the good edges. There's the technical side of having the mirror edge be a bit sharp. It's looking a bit cut out from Absolutely. That mirror edge. Yeah. And with breakdown reels, this is a really good opportunity to check those things out, because it, just on those few frames scanning through, you can actually see the mirror edge changing. Exactly. And that's the kind of stuff that not only are we looking for, but VFX supervisors are also looking at those things. And that, those little details really set apart a good looking shot you know, just focusing on the small things. Edges is actually a big thing, but the small details is really what helps sell shots for me.
Absolutely. And I do want to point out one thing about a demo reel review. This is a sort of a mission critical note, if you will. Reel reviews, while absolutely vital, are one of the hardest things, especially earlier on in one's career and through the lifespan of your career. One of the hardest things is separating your work from your personal feelings. And that is one thing we do try to emphasize and help everybody kind of understand. It's never personal. We're giving responses and a critique based upon the fact that it's a visual cue that has potentially taken years for us to develop and learn from others to be able to give this kind of feedback. It's not an attack on the artist themselves. It's not an attack on the student themselves. It's just a matter of the only way you can make the rocket ship go to space is by trial and error. And maybe that rocket might not make it up into space every time, but by learning all that feedback and applying it to future tasks, you only become better. And again, this is a vital part that will happen inside the studio on an almost daily basis. It's literally why one of the sessions that you will experience as an effects artist, a Houdini effects artist, or a compositor, and other job categories in our world is a meeting called dailies. Dailies is literally the thing that you sit down with your supervisor and they go over and give you actual verbal feedback based upon whatever the criteria is of those projects, so that you know what you need to be doing and those tasks that you need to be achieving in those specific shots that you're assigned at that moment. So yeah, that was great feedback. Thank you so much, Brittany. One of the things that I will note actually as well, it's all about faking the eye and ensuring that it's the real world. One thing that I did notice, the side mirror actually would probably want to be reversed on the motion. It's actually moving with the camera, but it would actually be the inverse because of the movement on the mirror. Okay, so let's just move on. We now have a little bit of an alien invasion going on, somewhat of a Independence Day kind of feeling. One of the things that kind of jumped out to me, and as an aside note, this is just a really cool shot. I'm kind of semi-biased, but hey, seeing a giant mothership hovering over downtown Los Angeles is pretty exciting for me. Living here, I'd love to look out the window and see something like that happen. But one of the things that jumped out to me as a general note, and of course, this is one of those kinds of shots that's suspension of disbelief. Obviously, no giant mothership has, as far as I'm aware, hovered over a downtown city. So we don't really have an actual literal visual reference for us to be able to pull from. But as an artist, you're always developing your eye, always thinking about what would it look like based upon the physics of the real world, what would it look like based upon the lighting of the real world. All these aspects combined together. So one of the things that kind of jumps out to me is the dark values of the mothership right here, especially on the bottom half. While I actually, just in advance of this meeting, I was just curious and I actually checked and sampled these values. They match the towers. So technically it is correct, but this is one of those examples where I would almost push it a little further on the artistic side instead of technical side and say the dark values of the mothership would want to be lightened up a little bit to better match the actual environment that's surrounding the mothership, not necessarily based upon the values below. So it feels like it's just a little bit more blended in to the shot. Yeah, so that's one of the shots. The next shot, we actually have a burning building shot. All hats off. This is actually a special one because Brittany was the one who created the tutorial for this. So very cool. This is literally one of my favorites that we have in the intro to comp. Brittany, since this is your baby, do you want to give a little feedback by any chance?
Yeah, I think for the most part, we're looking really good on the building. I think, there's the little details of the burning on the top edge of the building that really help set in that, this building is burning. I think we can maybe even add more scorch marks in that center section. Okay. But the big thing that kind of stood out for me was the wires on the screen left are actually going in and out of thickness, like going away from the camera, the more vertical wires, like they're thicker at the top, then they get thin, then they get thick again. Yes. So really just kind of smoothing that out. But I think overall, this is a really good looking shot.
Very cool. Thank you, Brittany.
Mhm.
Awesome. And then, you can see a few more examples of in this case, a background replacement for the actor that's in the foreground, adding in effects. You can see right here, we're dealing with various CG and live action assets. Really, the only note I would give on this one, and it's super nitpicky, it's not a big deal, but this explosion in the background right here, you can see this darker green area right here. I feel like vertically that explosion needs to be dropped a little bit so we don't see some of the live action background, the bushes, the green bushes that are behind. Other than that, this is a pretty awesome reel, and is a real point of pride if you're the artist that's built it. All right, so let's just stop with this one, and we're actually going to move on to a Houdini effects reel now. This one is specific to our Houdini class. And Daniel and Ben, I think you guys are going to be the ones talking about this. I'll hit play. We'll play it through once with audio, then I'll mute it and you guys can have a discussion.
I think this first shot's cool. One of the things that's interesting when you look at a lot of visual effects reels, a lot of effects artist reels, is you start to see the same shots over and over again. I think someone in a webinar once described it as kind of show reel bingo, where you're just matching like tutorials from different websites all over the place. So that is always the danger when you include a tutorial based shot on your show reel. I start to a little bit glaze over when I see shots that are taken directly and basically reproduced verbatim from a tutorial, because we can all follow tutorials and click the buttons that we're told to. What I really like to see is someone, maybe they take the tutorial and they make it their own, or maybe they take the idea and transform it into something. I think, this looks like a perfectly good shot, but I've seen it a lot of times before, and that immediately kind of makes me just go, okay, what's next? I've seen that. I know you've been shown how to do that. What else have you got? I think technically, one of the things that stands out to me, and I've noticed this across a few of the shots on the reel, is there's no motion blur. There's camera motion blur, but there's no motion blur on any of the rigid body of the building. And that is a big one that we see all the time, is something that people forget to turn on, and it's one of those things that makes something feel a little bit more realistic. It gives it that blur when it's meant to be moving. Our eyes don't see things super crisp when they're moving quickly. You can see it when the camera's moving, the scene is blurred, and you want to see that on the pieces, on the smoke, on the destruction, because it just makes it feel much more realistic.
Yeah, it makes all the difference. And I think when we make our stuff, we're always knowing that motion blur is going to be part of what makes it have that energy and that sort of impact. And so there's definitely a missed opportunity to not have that in there.
Yeah, Ben, anything you want to add about that shot?
I think you're right on. And a lot of our tutorial, a lot of our content, you know, we mentioned when Brittany was reviewing the other shot that our stuff is tutorial based. But a big part of how I approach, and I know other mentors do as well, is sort of making sure students have that sort of push to say, now you need to take this and make it your own. You know, you sort of always sort of pushing that in there. You know, when you're working with tutorial stuff, it's the only way to sort of get started, but you got to make sure you're sort of pushing it, and that'll make it stand out twice as much. Because if you've seen a shot 20 times, and then you'll notice the one person who does choose to add some extra stuff to it, so you can definitely take it and go.
That's right. Transform it, make it your own. And yeah, you're right. That is the key thing that we focus on, is just trying to teach you how to do whatever you want to do. It's not about just solely recreating something.
Yeah. I think the other thing I've noticed about, we actually saw two contrasts, the previous reel with compositing and this reel here. There's a big difference in terms of how the breakdowns were proposed. We sort of see all the shots together and then the breakdown in this one versus the other one, which was all integrated. And obviously when you're reviewing reels, you'll hear both as the way to do it. It's interesting to see them both. My opinion is I like seeing the breakdown afterwards. I get the overview, and then if I like what I see, cool, then I get to stay for the after credit sequence, basically, where you get to see the breakdown. His breakdowns sort of get more and more complicated. By the time we get to the guy sort of appearing, we're getting every single pass shown for 3 seconds. That's too much. Just keep it simple. Do a quick, like, oh, here's some passes. And I think the minutia versus the first breakdown he does versus the one he did for this, where he really showed all those things. I think you can sort of keep it simple.
That's right. I mean, you know, towards the end of the reel, and you know, we look at lots of reels. If you're looking at a lot of reels for a job application, probably towards the end of that reel, I would have turned it off, because I was starting to get a little bit, you know, kind of like, okay, it's going a bit long. You're really dragging out these breakdowns. You got to keep it short, keep it punchy. You got to keep someone's attention for as long as possible. So just you know, try and focus all that energy. And you don't need it to be 2 minutes. You know, it can just be a minute, just a very short punchy thing with your best work on it, and that's it. All right, do you want to go back to the explosion shot, Sean? I think this one's really interesting. You know, I can tell that it's something that he's created. It's not something that I've seen before. It has this kind of cinematic quality to it, where it's not just an explosion. He's sort of placing us in a point of view, if someone hiding behind a little bunker or something, and we trace the animation of this missile coming down. Now, the environment doesn't have a lot of work put into it in terms of, you know, it's very kind of basically textured and all that stuff, but that isn't really the focus. You know, the main focus is the explosion. As an effects supervisor, I'm hiring him based on his effects skills, not his modeling skills or his you know, ability to place assets. Though those choices that he makes, I am kind of judging. You know, I'm judging how he puts the scene together and how he you know, places his camera, because all of those things give me an indication of how good his visual eye might be. You know, it's not just about the effects. I'm judging, you know, subconsciously a lot of stuff as well. So it's important to put your scene together well and make sure that it kind of, you know, works.
Yeah, and especially focusing on the fact that there's an explosion demonstrated. Anybody here who's watching, who's actually seen sort of new improvements in Houdini, they've actually made it a lot easier to make a fantastic explosion in Houdini. Back in the old days, we could spend a whole month talking about all the ways to create an explosion, but now Houdini is integrating tools which make that job a lot easier. So what you may have seen in old reels, where you see an explosion just on black, or sort of just an explosion rendered on its own, that doesn't cut it anymore. And so just taking, at least in my opinion, taking it and putting it in camera, making it feel like a shot from a film is fantastic. Even if you can't fully lighten, fully texture and sort of model the background, just composing a good shot, judging by the scale of things is really key. How big should that explosion be? I mean, this is a good example of, to me, almost the bare minimum if you're going to be presenting explosion work, is just because we know as reviewers just what you can do now in Houdini.
Definitely, that's right. I mean, you have to, you have to understand that the people you're sending your reel to are very experienced. They've seen it all before, and they're capable of creating some, very realistic looking effects. So you want to try and impress them with something that, just stands out. Technically, one of the things, again, I can see no motion blur on those RBD chunks. One of the things that stands out to me is a very big difference in resolution between those trails and the explosion. They're very soft. They don't kind of match the sharpness of the details in the explosion. It feels a bit like they're defocused, but it's probably just a resolution issue. And you can really see those chunks standing out there, non-motion blur. They're really sharp. And then right at the end there as well, there's a missing frame, which, maybe you should just trim that off so that doesn't occur. But yeah, look, I think the thing I like about this shot is how he's presented that explosion. It is not just an explosion on a grid with a black background. He's tried to give it some context, which, it makes it feel like a game environment. It's not quite, realistic enough to be film VFX. It's on its way, but it feels to me like a nice game shot.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right.
I think this one's cool. It's an interesting one because it shows like a different side of the effects artist. It shows, some techniques. It shows an interesting kind of compositing technique, even with that distortion that's going on there. We've got some electricity. We've got an interesting sort of transition that's occurring, and that, when I'm looking at it, I can see, I can imagine the processes that he undertook, and it shows me that he's not just all about destruction and explosions. It's a different skill set, and that is good to sort of present, that you can do more than just the big stuff.
Exactly. And these are those kind of shots where we as reviewers, we know the hits. We love to see the hits. We need to see the hits, the rigid bodies, the pyro, maybe some liquid simulation. But if you can then wow us with one of those, like, oh, this is something, because we've all had those kind of shots in production, those weird, like, oh, how am I going to do this? So it's cool to see something which is taking a bunch of ideas and combining them. So I always love to see those and encourage students to put them on their reel. So it's great.
Definitely.
And actually, I'll just, if you don't mind, I'll just interject for a quick sec. One thing, I think one of the things also that's a takeaway from all this is, especially with CG Spectrum, sometimes it's a great idea to try to partner up with other students that are in other groups or other departments of the school, because then you're able to take those elements that you've created and build out actual final finished cinematic shots. So for example, talking about this shot right here, I see this and I'm like, man, I just love to see like a live action actor do kind of very similar movement. We just go out, shoot that, and then get a digit double, someone in animation to animate a digit double, bring that into, eventually land that into Houdini, do all the same exact effects, but then a compositing student composite that to make it an actual finished, polished piece. It's a very creative take on something, but then you actually show a larger, more well-rounded kind of, almost using the first date analogy, where you catch it and the eye actually is like, that's sweet. I've never seen that before. I really like that. And that's kind of one of the major critical factors when you are applying for the job, because if the viewer doesn't get you don't get their attention in the first few seconds, they quite possibly will move on, because they've got 50, 60, 70 or more demo reels that they got to get through in a few hours. So for them, that first 10 to 30 seconds worth of the demo reel is absolutely mission critical. So when I go back to that, like that first date analogy, it's very in that same kind of mindset, where it's got to be best presentation forward. And I'm not saying this isn't, obviously, but it's all about the presentation and whatever you can do to set yourself apart from everybody else. So when I say like, oh, take this and make this a live action finished shot, that's maybe taking it that little extra notch. While it might be painful to get it to that finish, because you're at now, it's not just you, but you're working with other artists or other students at the same time. You're also ensuring that you're making something that is not only unique, but it's also setting you apart from what might have been, just a project that potentially was just centered around your specific focus.
Absolutely.
All right. So we have one last shot here on this reel. It's the fire shot.
Yeah, look, I think this one is nice. I mean, as someone that's done a lot of fire in my career, I can pick on the fire a lot, but I think it is a kind of nice way to present fire. It's an interesting sort of subtle shot, and sometimes subtlety is a really good thing to show as well. Just like, as I was saying, it's not all about explosions and building destructions. It's nice to see something a bit kind of smaller scale and a bit more sort of toned down.
There's a good journey. Yeah.
That's right.
We started with a monster destroying a building, and then we're just like, this is the sort of end. So it's I like the reels have a good journey.
Yeah, you're right. And structuring your reel that way as well is an interesting kind of idea, where you create either, you build up or you ramp down. You think about the pace of your show reel and how it's going to be perceived. It's always important to show other people as well, but like show your family, show your friends, see, they're always going to give you positive reviews, but see what they think about it. See if they think it feels a bit long or the pace is too short, or what they might offer you before you go sending it out. Technically, for me, the fire, I think, feels a little bit soft. I'd like to see that just feel a little bit sharper. But I think it's a nice kind of presentation. I really kind of would like to see that, like we were saying earlier, with the breakdown, positioned at the end. I'd like to see the breakdown right after that, because it really gives you that appreciation of what's gone into that shot. I think seeing the 3D models is kind of interesting. Maybe the length of that breakdown is a bit long, but I don't know. What do you think, Ben?
Yeah, exactly right. I concur.
Yeah. Cool. Well, look, I think the breakdowns are good. Like Ben said earlier, I think they're a little bit lengthy, and it possibly would be good to insert them after every shot so that we get to appreciate the shot and then the breakdown straight after. I think that's a good call.
Thanks, gentlemen. Appreciate that. Let's move on now. I'm just going to, we're obviously, we're having a great conversation, and with that comes time kind of sliding by. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share the next reel. We're going to view it. I might say one or two things, but we won't give it an actual in-depth review on it at the moment, just for ease of time. All right, so we have our final student reel. This is again a compositing reel in this one.
I feel it running in my veins, struggling with breathing, suffocates my brain, and there's nowhere, gravity's erased. I am the runaway dog, they sent me in a space. It's a little planet flying through the stars. I don't want to sit down.
All right, so that was an example of a student that has not only gone through the diploma, but they have also built out shots of their own accord. Some of these shots are through the course, but also as well. It's great because this reel here is very illustrative of a lot of what they would potentially learn in the diploma course. This shot, for example, is touching directly upon not only 2D compositing, but also working in 3D within Nuke, which is a great addition. This shows some of the more core basics of actual rotoscoping and capabilities within. Digital painting, scene removal, that's always vital to a compositor. And working with a 3D CG character and effects as well, interaction with a live action environment. It's a well-rounded reel and a good representation of what you might be using to apply as a junior compositor within our graduated program. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing, and at this point, It is going to be, we're getting kind of the icing on the cake at the moment. We're going to be or Brittany, I'm sorry, is going to be showing her personal compositing demo reel. This is quite literally the calling card or the resume that she has utilized for more recent employment. And I'll just let her take it away.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, this isn't something that is straight out of school. This is 9 years of work, but this is the kind of work that you can potentially look forward to. And then I'll kind of walk through each of the shots after I play it and what those items are in the shot that studios are looking for. So in this first shot, there's a huge camera move. So within this, you're showing that you can do tracking and that you can do CG integration. There's people up here. So you can see all these people back here. The front row is all in the plate. Everyone else is CG back here. I think the cutoff was about here for the mid-ground CG characters, and then everything else back here is all CG. Towards the end of the shot, the boats on the screen right are all CG, and within this shot, we're also showing that there's effects work. So all of these boats, all the water that's moving along the edges is all CG. In the next shot, this is a CG character. Obviously, we don't have dragons running around. This is all effects fire in the back here. We have a couple 2D fire elements in the foreground, but all of this fire is an effects sim. And the dust, embers, some of the smoke in the foreground, just to help with render times for effects, is all combined in comp. We also do little things like adding glints to the eyes. This is something that we kind of do in comp, is just the little extra bits that help sell a shot. Same thing with like the embers and dust layer. In this shot, this is a mix of plate and CG. So everyone behind this line here is actually CG. I have a breakdown of this shot, which shows the different layers. So this is using CG effects and combining it all in comp and doing some 2D stuff, like fixing the grass in the foreground here, painting that out, and doing a little bit more on the sand integration work. In this shot, we have simple things like just adding in a fire to this. This wasn't actually lit, so this is done in comp. If it was done by FX, it would probably look way better. But this is a 2D element that is tracked in. So this is showing that we can do that 2D effects in comp. And then we have the CG palace. If you follow my mouse, this is all blue screen here down at the bottom. Everything else on the top is all CG. This is a CG fence that was built, and then the entire city behind is also CG. So all these buildings, and then layering different smoke elements in between the buildings. So that's something that you would do. You would track those in individually and layer those in between the buildings, just to help sell the depth of the city. This is a full CG shot. So this is done with particles in Nuke. This can be done in FX, but it's way faster to render within Nuke, a 3D particle system. And using deep compositing, you can have the dragon actually flying through those things. So it has a little bit of interaction there, and then adding in little subtle things like raindrops hitting the dragon, and adding in things like a lens flare when the lightning is hit. These are all things that just kind of push it over the edge. This one here is also a full CG shot. I did the effects for the weapons in comp using Hakix, and added in the glow, added in the particle system to kind of help emulate that this is a large scene. The effects team did the water splashes, both from the rain hitting the ground and also the characters interacting with the ground. So when this guy is coming running forward on the left side, you can see that there's a bunch of FX splashes there, and same with the character here. This is a 2D DMP, the spider web. The interaction with the rock falling through is done in comp, done with some warping, and then animating to have these spider webs essentially break when the rock is coming through. Also adding in God rays to kind of work with the guy that's coming through the hole here. And then we have the CG characters, which are the spiders, and doing a little bit of a subsurface treatment on the spikes to show that there's something, that they're not completely opaque. And in this one, all the interaction with the genes with the mouse. So when he steps down, when he lifts this up, all that interaction with the genes. And then we have the CG mouse, the interaction here with the genes as well. And then we have this where we have CG, we have an entire CG character, but we wanted to use just the jaw and just the hands. So making sure that those are blending together, you know, doing color corrects and things of that sort to kind of make sure that these blend together. And then we have little subtle things like there's a blue screen back behind these ladies, so you had to make sure that they have nice clean edges and that you don't have any roughness back here. And then there's actually a little, so these witches actually don't have toes, so I had to track in DMP for the feet here. A little thing that you probably wouldn't even notice when watching this play through the first time. And then in shots like this, sometimes you'll get CG elements where they don't line up perfectly, so you have to do a little bit of warping in comp, and that's what I had to do with the lining up of the arm. So before, I think there was like a little bit of a hitch here, so I had to bring that back in. This shot here, I also have a breakdown of, and this just shows the different layers of what we had in the CG. We also had some 2D smoke and some arrows added in to be flying through this battle. This shot here is a full CG shot. There's a character, she just stabbed him in the head and now he's going down. We have this main effect sim for the sand. Once he hits the rock, all this sand falls and the dirt and debris. We added some 2D smoke towards the end just to help layer it up. But this is really a big effects shot. It's really hard to try to accomplish this in comp alone. So it's really a combination of those two things. In this one, this is actually really, really interesting. Glass is so hard to render through lighting. And so sometimes you'll run into a lot of issues with that. And with this shot, we came up with a way to do it in comp. So what we got was a 3D model of the bucket, and from that using normals to essentially make the refraction, reflection, and the Fresnel along the edges. This is a shot that actually, when I was in an interview, they asked me how I accomplished it because it's such an interesting way to do it in comp. Usually you try to get these renders, but it's hard to kind of separate the inner parts from the outer parts of both the glass and the character. So, you know, learning those kinds of techniques, and really like the technique for this is not hard. It's just kind of lengthy. And then adding in the breath onto the glass, just a projection. I believe FX did the fingers pressed up against the glass. So, you know, FX isn't just fire and smoke. They have so many different things that they help us out with. And this is one of those things. It would be really hard to try to accomplish this, you know, this smaller tip in the center of the finger spreading out to the ends with this. Doing this in comp would have been much more difficult and probably not look nearly as good. This was an effects sim back here. Same with the portals. We added in the lightning bits in comp. We've got a CG dragon back here. The foreground characters is all blue screen. So the blue screen, I think, comes up to about here. And then everything else is all CG and blended in. So really had to work with the color corrects to try to get the ground sitting in well, and work with the effects to give the illusion that these do belong together. And that's kind of what Sean was talking about when we're trying to sell an image. And I'm trying to explain this to somebody that doesn't know anything about compositing, is I like to say it's Photoshop on crack, because everyone kind of knows what Photoshop is. Not everyone knows what compositing is. And here, this is a CG dragon, again, with the particle setup. In this one, we had CG environment. The sky you don't really see. It was a DMP, but we kind of wound up covering it up. And you know, adding in the glow, we kind of doing compositing, adding in all of these smoke elements down on the ground. These are all projections of 2D elements. This is a full CG shot. This is probably one of my favorites just because they're cute. This is a full CG shot. So in this, we're both working with the different focus of where we want to lead the eye. So usually, you know, on camera, you have the director and the cinematographer doing those things and directing those things. So in this, we had a little bit of fun with it, and we were able to have the focus go from Bruno taking his tail out to the mouse in front, I forget his name, running here. And in this one, we did the jar refraction as well. This one shows a little bit of a different aspect because there's actually something on top of the glass, and those are books. So this was a little bit different of a refraction because there's more layers. The top of the bucket actually had an indent in it, so we had to take that into account. And then these are CG Octavia Spencer legs. So sometimes you get that cool stuff. In this one, this is a blue screen key. So everything behind this tower here is all blue screen. And the tricky part with this was removing the snow from the blue screen and then adding it back on top of the CG palace. And then we have a full CG shot here. Actually, no, not full CG, just the cat. Just the cat and the food. The background back here is actually a 2D plate, and then adding in 2D smoke. And on this last shot is the dragon with breathing fire. This is FX fire coming towards the end here, really encapsulating the camera. And we have the 3D rain setup, doing the different lightnings to the background and having that affect all of the rain and the dragon. This was, a really fun shot to work on. But I think that was it for me.
Awesome. So now that we're done the reel review, I just wanted to give you a little bit of a reminder about our courses. So if some of those reels interested you, especially Brittany's professional reel at the end, if that's in the interest to you, then you can check out our FX and Compositing courses. So you can start to make work like that all on your own. So you can kickstart your film and games career with CG Spectrum. You can learn the latest visual effects techniques used by top studios like Weta Digital, where Brittany was last working. And you get to train with industry standard tools like Houdini, Nuke, Mocha, and all the software that we mentioned today. And there are also the software licenses included in the course. So as I mentioned before, you don't have to worry about paying for Houdini or Nuke. We will cover that for you. It's included in the cost of your course. And we have our active online community to support you. So some of those students that you saw in our alumni reel, they're still active online in our community. You also have people like Brittany, Sean, Daniel, Ben, and who am I missing here? Oh my God. Anyway, all of us that have been here today, they are online in our community to support you. So you can always get some extra tips and support throughout your time here with the course. So just remember that if you enroll by November 25th, you can start in December. So if you're looking to start ASAP, you just need to enroll by the 25th of this month in order to start in December. And you can check out these courses in more detail at cgspectrum.com/visual-effects. And if you're looking for a little bit more support, but maybe you're not totally ready to start one of our courses yet, you can check out some of our free resources. So Daniel's weekly VFX streams are on YouTube. So like he said before, he's online every week. And so if you have any questions, you can check that out. You can comment live and he'll talk to you live on the live stream. You can also check out past webinar replays if you go to cgspectrum.com/webinars, where we have talked to many different industry professionals in the past about stuff like this. We also have that VFX career guide. So I mentioned it earlier in the presentation, but watch your email inbox for a link. We'll be sending you that shortly after this event is over. And some little announcement that we have here. We have a brand new CG Spectrum podcast coming in 2022. So something to look forward to. And you'll be hearing from some industry mentors and industry professionals in this podcast. I'm not going to say too much more about that, but we're super excited about the podcast that's coming. And yeah, Daniel's saying, come say hi on YouTube. He's there every single week on youtube.com/CG Spectrum. So come say hi. We also have a bunch of other live streams that happen for some of our other fields and courses. We're streaming 7 days a week on YouTube and Twitch. So find us, check us out. And one last little piece of, advice here. If you're interested in taking our course and if you think you're ready to go, we have a VFX Open Day offer where you can get a free CG Spectrum t-shirt when you enroll in one of our courses before December 31st, 2021. And all you have to do is enroll, but you can choose to start your course. If you're not ready to start in January, you can also start in February or March with this Open Day offer, but you do have to enroll by December 31st, 2021. And another special little prize, the first person to sign up after this VFX Open Day today, anyone to sign up, the very first person will get a free 1-year pro subscription to Footage Crate. That is huge if you're looking to make a really solid looking portfolio or reel. So you want to check that out. First person to sign up, we're only giving it away to one person. So the very first person to enroll in one of our courses after today will be getting that offer. More details will be coming in a follow-up email. So don't worry if you didn't write everything down today, we'll send you an email after this. So if you're here, if you registered for this event and you're here right now, you will be getting an email. So don't worry. And I just wanted to say thank you for everyone who joined us today. We had quite a few people watching. It was fantastic. We have tons of questions. We've answered most of them, but we still do have a couple left. And so if you do have any other questions that are still swimming around in your head, feel free to pop them in the question and answer tab here in Zoom. And you can find us on YouTube. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. And you can always send us an email if you email us at hello@cgspectrum.com. But find us on social media. We have a ton of free resources that we're sharing all the time, even if you're not a student with us. Now it is finally time for the official Q&A. What have we not answered? Let's check it out. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And we have some people here with us who's left, and we're going to do some Q&A. Okay, so we have a question here, and I did see it come up before. So Janice, thank you for asking this question. What specific computer requirements do we need? For example, graphics card and storage. Who would like to take this question away? I do believe that it depends on the course you're taking, but we do have some minimum requirements. So if anyone has any minimums.
Houdini is certainly probably going to be one of the more demanding softwares that you're going to come across. But, you know, it is possible to go through the course on a decent laptop. It's probably not what I would recommend, but some students, that is all that they have available to them. Maybe they have a portable lifestyle and that's all they can manage, and that's fine. Side Effects for Houdini has minimum requirements on their website, which you can check out. I usually tell people that, you know, 32 gigabytes of RAM minimum is a kind of good place to be. On a laptop, that might be difficult. Houdini is not particularly GPU intensive. It's more about the processor. There are optimizations and things that do utilize the GPU, but I usually tell people to preference using better CPU than GPU. I think there's a common kind of misconception that having a really good graphics card just makes everything better. But in reality, a lot of softwares don't actually utilize the graphics card to its full capabilities. So I usually preference high RAM and better CPU than graphics card. Anyone else want to add to that?
Very similar.
That's good.
I'd say for Nuke on our side, the one thing that I always say when we have a student or somebody that asks, you know, what I'm thinking about upgrading my computer, what should I get? Obviously, you know, depending on the track that you go, so whether it be Houdini FX or whether it be a Nuke compositing, obviously the first source would be go to the software manufacturer's website, look at what their minimum system requirements would be to ensure that you at least can hit that note. It's not, and talking personally about Nuke side, it's not that high. You can run Nuke on a fairly standard laptop, for example. My personal recommendation is go a little bit beyond that. And as a general statement, as Daniel mentioned, obviously, if you have a bit of more of a mobile lifestyle, then you're probably going to be laptop based. But if you can maybe consider going more of a desktop tower based computer, just for the fact that you have expandability, you can, you know, like you mentioned, start with 32 gigs of RAM, but maybe you have the option when you have a little extra cash, throw another 32 in there, which is literally what I just did last week. So, you know, you don't have to do it all at once, but make sure you buy a computer that has sort of those minimum, like you said, CPU. If you're looking at a graphics card, make sure it's a graphics card that can handle at least to a certain level, and then add to it as opportunity and finances allow.
One thing that they don't mention on the websites, for computer specs is hard drive. You're going to fill up your hard drive like within the first couple of weeks of doing a Houdini course, because you'll be simulating something and it will just write gigabytes of data. So get a big hard drive, get a few of them, have a portable drive so you can dump stuff on it. That is something, within the industry, we're filling up terabytes and terabytes of data on big projects, and you will, unless you delete stuff to make room for the next project, which becomes problematic if you want to go back to it. You'll need hard drives. That's a big one that they don't mention.
Yeah, that's so true. Even I had to get a new hard drive for this job.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, what other questions do we have here? Oh, this is a quick one I can answer. Mateo is asking, how many enrollment sections do you have throughout the year? So we have new courses starting every single month. So if you don't make the cutoff for December by enrolling by November 25th, then you can start in January. And if you don't start in January, you can start in February. So 12 months out of the year, we're starting new courses every month. So no worries, Mateo. Christian's asking, is it possible to pay and study from Chile? Yes, I have many students who are currently in Chile, so that is no problem for you. We'll be able to do that.
I've taught 3 of them. I've taught three students from Chile. I know.
There we go. Yeah,
Same
we
here.
have
I've
quite
had
a few students. Yeah, see? So we have a lot of students from Chile and South America, all over the world, really. Okay, so let's see, what else do we have here? Jacob is asking, what would you say to someone who is concerned about the school being for profit when most regular colleges are nonprofit? Jacob, I would love to answer that question, and if anyone else wants to interject. When you look at visual effects and animation schools, when you look at the more traditional brick and mortar schools that are funded by the government, or partially funded by the government, those are a little bit different. So those are a little bit more old school. They have longer programs. They do have bachelor programs as well. And it's a more traditional college experience. Not to say that those are bad in any way, but when you do look at some of the more specialized visual effects schools, most of them, many of them are actually for-profit schools. You look at schools like Nomon, CGMA, all of these top animation visual effects schools like us are also for-profit. So it's all about just making the choice that's right for you, Jacob. So doing your research, figuring out which course is the right for you, which has like the best outcomes for you. And, for us, I think the biggest things that separate us from some of the other schools are our mentors and our Slack community. Those 2 things are so fantastic. So I don't know if anyone else has something to add, but I feel like a lot of schools out there are for profit.
I think I actually personally, one of my planetarium is a giant nonprofit University of Chapel Hill in the United States. So there's lots of technical legal reasons why a institution may be nonprofit, but the great thing about an online institution is you get firsthand knowledge looking anywhere online for reviews. If this place was a scam or we're not worth the money, then you'd obviously see that all over online. So I think that's sort of an interesting, at least my take on things is, the fact that our reputation's out there for anybody to tell you, that's really the proof that, to me, that sort of makes this valid. But I think nonprofit really becomes a more of a legal or where the thing is based versus the quality of their education.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it must be a North American thing, because all of the colleges here in Australia are for profit. We don't really have non-profit colleges, not at the degree level anyway.
And also just kind of you mentioned something, Ben, as well, like the reputation that comes out of what CG Spectrum offers. It's not just the reputation of the school, but also the reputation of every single mentor that participates with the school. As we had mentioned, the majority of our mentors are working in the industry, and in our industry as a whole, ask anybody that works in this, your reputation in many ways precedes you, because it is a very small world that we're a part of. It's a global industry, but I guarantee you somebody knows someone else that knows you kind of thing. And in that category, if any of us artists were associated with something that potentially was a questionable level of integrity, maybe wouldn't be a good positive outcome. And look at all the students that we have come out of the school. There is a very positive feedback that comes from all that.
Great answers, everyone. Okay, so we have another question here from Vanya. They are saying, I'm not sure how to phrase this question, as I do understand there's no guarantees in life. That's half the answer right there. But assuming that one has used all of their time wisely and learned everything taught at the course, and you use all of the resources that we give you, that's the extra little tidbit I'm adding there. Would there be an increased chance of getting work due to the fact that one is a student of CG Spectrum? So at the end of the day, everyone's experience is their own. So it really is about you putting in your personal effort. What we can offer you are the additional resources. So it's not just about the course content that you're getting. It's about getting support from not only your teacher, but other teachers. So you might have Sean as your compositing mentor, but there's nothing to stop you from sending Brittany a message in our Slack community and saying, hey, Brittany, I saw some of your work. I'm really interested in working at a studio like Method, like Weta Digital. Could you take a look at my reel and let me know what you think? So you're getting feedback from multiple people. Same with Daniel and Ben. I often see both of them responding to students' questions and comments in our Slack community. So you're, and they might be mentored by a completely different FX mentor, and so they're getting 3 different people's opinions or more on their work. So it's really about the resources, Vanya, and I would say that there is an increased chance of work if you take advantage of all the resources. If you only watch the videos and do the bare minimum and just follow along with the tutorials, you're going to kind of get the bare minimum education. Your skill level will reflect that. But if you're constantly trying to evolve yourself, take advantage of all the people that you have at your fingertips, contact me once you're ready and at that stage where you got to get your resume put together, you got your portfolio and your reel put together, and getting feedback from multiple people, that will give you that competitive edge. Plus, I mentioned it earlier, we do have our portfolio database. So once you are ready and you have your portfolio put together, I can put you in contact with studios who directly talk to us for job opportunities. So I am often sending away student information to different hiring managers and recruiters when they are looking for specific skills or people located in certain areas. I will send them a list of students and alumni who match those skills and criteria. So I'd say yes. Short answer, yes. And we do offer students or jobs in our job board, so you have access to additional jobs. So yeah, I think we give it a pretty competitive edge, Vanya. Okay, next, what do we have here? An anonymous person is asking, have any of the panel members in VFX started their own business, freelancing, contracting, or offering a service to producers in VFX after their years working with different studios and companies? Or is VFX a career where you'll always need to be part of the wider team or departments in the film and gaming industry? Daniel, I think this is a great question for you before you head out.
Sure. Well, I mean, I do freelance, but I still, when I'm freelancing, I'm still working for a company. The producer or the VFX supervisor might reach out to me and ask me to do something. I'm technically working as my own company, but I was still relying on that work coming from outside. I'm not going out and chasing that work. That is one of the hardest things when you start your own business or you're a freelancer, is actually, you have to chase down the work and constantly kind of be on the lookout for things or make contacts with people. Film visual effects, just because of the way that the industry works and because it is such a big thing, you're usually a small part in a much larger team or organization. They tend to be tied to studios. I mean, things have changed now with the ability to remote work. That really wasn't hugely possible 2 years ago, but now it's sort of the norm. And hopefully that continues. But yeah, look, I mean, I think I hear from a lot of students who have dreams of starting their own visual effects studio or their own animation studio. And I think once you get into the industry, you realize actually this is really hard. It takes hundreds, if not thousands of people to pull this off. And, you know, that dream starts to kind of become a little bit out of reach, but not impossible. And people definitely do it. I worked with a guy who was a lead on Aquaman a couple of years ago, and he went and started his own studio in Italy where there were no visual effects studios. So he kind of created a market for himself, and he's been quite successful at it. So it's definitely possible. But yeah, I think, you know, it's also really great to be part of the visual effects industry and go and work for a studio. It's a lot easier. You just go and sit at your desk, you do your job, you don't have to worry about the financials, you get paid, you know, all that stuff. Yeah, I don't know.
We've
what
got
do
a
you guys
couple.
think?
I was going to say we've got a couple. I know of two students specifically of mine who have gone on. There's a guy Alejandro, who's been. He was a Houdini student. He's got his own studio down in Brazil, and the stuff he shows me that he's working on is fantastic. I'm like, how are you doing this? But yeah, I mean, it all depends on the individual. So if you're fired up about it, you know, like Daniel was saying, there are people who can do it, but inevitably you're going to bring in a team. It's never just you on your own. Well, I can't say never, but even Alejandro, I know he brings in people. So yeah, I mean, there's lots of options.
Yeah. And that also pertains to compositing as well. I mean, we're a small niche group, so to speak, globally, but at the same time, being one of the most in-demand jobs, every aspect of visual effects needs it. So the question about freelancing, especially in like Daniel mentioned, the last 2 or so years, before it wasn't nearly as prevalent, but now a large portion of the visual effects industry does work from home, and it seems to be sticking, which is a fantastic opportunity for having a little bit more location independence. So freelance versus, we call it permalance, when you're more of a longer term employee in a studio, or being staff where you're working in studio, it kind of is starting to blend together to a certain extent in regards to what that definition might actually be.
Mm-hmm.
Can we answer the question that the anonymous attendee has posted? He's basically trying to get us to start a fight between the Houdini people and the Nuke people. So I just wanted to. I mean, I wanted to fight. People are ready.
That's the one I'm saying. Let's answer it.
Let's do this. Okay, so I'm thinking about doing the foundations of VFX diploma. I'm unsure whether I should request my last term to be intro to Nuke compositing instead of intro to Houdini effects. Completely new to VFX, but so far it seems that compositors do both visual effects and integrating effects and digital assets into green screen footage.
Here it comes.
In other words, do they do more? And Brittany's example was perfect. She was like, oh, typically an effects person would do this particle sim, but actually I did it myself.
Yeah, hold on. Let me tighten the coat a little bit. Yes, compositing all the way for the win. Don't hit me. No.
I think that they work pretty much side by side. Like,
yes,
you can't do one without the other.
It's a marriage.
Yeah. Like I said, like there were some areas where we saved a lot of time doing it in comp, but there's some areas where we're like, there's no way in hell we are doing this. You know, that it needs to go to the effects department.
Yeah, a lot of times
that would be my opinion.
Yeah. I think part of it's like it looks like it's more because we looked at like the effects reel and there was like a character and an explosion, and then we look at the compositing reels and there's all this other stuff. Keep in mind that like the effects reel, a lot of times when we're doing full CG renders, there's a lot more stuff we have to put on screen, so it might not seem like as much, but you know, hour for hour, we're both working 150 hours a week.
Absolutely.
So you know, it all yeah, it's basically just different ways to carry the water up the mountain, but it might look like more, but they're both fantastic jobs.
It also comes down to many times a cost analysis. What is something that we can do without needing the entire visual effects pipeline, which is starting from literally the beginning of visual effects all the way to the end through comp. So that's, you know, your modeling, your texturing, your animating, your rigging, then lighting, your effects, your rendering, and then compositing. So that's a lot of people that pass through for literally one shot that you might watch that is a blink and you miss it half a second. So, you know, in 1 second, 24 frames, 24 images, a shot that maybe is 12 or 16 frames long might have had 8 or 10 plus people actually have a hand in getting it to final and finish. But then you look at it from a cost analysis perspective and you say, okay, if we hire 8 or 10 people to do this 16-second shot, or we hire a compositor, what can we get accomplished just having the compositor? So that's where, you know, like for example, in the compositing, and I don't mean it in a negative way, because this is very much a marriage between all these departments. There's no one department that's more important than another. But on the compositing side, we can sometimes push out certain things using, for example, library effects, things that the effects department has made in their spare time or came from R&D when they were working on a project 6 months prior that didn't actually get utilized for that project. Shelve it, pull it out later, and that might be a render that we pull out and utilize in comp later. The point being, sometimes everything, when it comes down to the money, we can bid on something that we can say, okay, we can have a compositor spend 15 hours on this shot and get it done, or we can have the entire pipeline each spend 2 hours and it'll take 30 hours to get done. So really it's many times just the cost analysis of what gets it done the most accurately for the more budgetable dollar figure.
That's right. And also effects artists, I mean, depending on the studio and the level of the artist, they are also using Nuke. So a lot of the time I will make a judgment call about what is the best tool to use for this task that I've been assigned. And I've done Rain in Nuke as well. And, you know, that I was given the Rain task, but I did it in Nuke and then just passed it to the compositor. You know, it's sort of, you use whatever tool is the best one for the job, or what's going to get the job done fastest as well. Like, as you say, it's a cost. It's a problem
solving thing for sure. Yeah. And I think here at the school, or like as a student, typically you learn how to do something the best way, you know, or like one of the best ways. You're using like to do it properly. But when you actually start working in a studio and you have schedules and budgets and timeframes and people that you're working with, you're often faced with this decision. And it might not be you as a junior artist, but someone like Brittany or Daniel or Sean or Ben would be faced with the decision to say, okay, well, we don't have time to do it the proper way. So what kind of shortcut can we take? How can we still get the effect that we want achieve, the final result, without taking all of those proper steps? So that's when you have a lot of innovation really coming from some of these softwares. Like, you know, you mentioned earlier that like, oh, making explosions in Houdini is easier now than it was 5 years ago. And a lot of that happens because of the problem solving that needs to go on in the background for some of these big projects. And I think Vanya, actually, one of the viewers here, hit the nail on the head. In today's competitive environment, you will not even have the luxury to be exclusively comp or 3D. Obviously, you can lean towards one direction, but as we've heard from these mentors here, many of them themselves have a background in maybe animation or something else. Like I think 3 or 4 of you like started in animation first, and now you're doing something completely different. And no one can take that knowledge away from you. You know, knowing some animation principles will help you with your timing and effects and your eye for good design and compositing. So
and that literally, you actually just said it, like animation principles and timing, just timing alone. I know it sounds silly, but like in Nuke or in compositing, knowing how to keyframe and animate and interpolate between keyframes when you're animating even just a roto shape, understanding that kind of concept is very important. So like having a broader level of knowledge and being able to talk the talk, so to speak, to a lot of different areas of visual effects is very important, because when you're able to relate to the other categories or job titles, it's a lot easier to be able to work between one department and another to ensure that the final product is output correctly. But at the same time, it's not just about generalists, it's about specialists, because every studio has a different setup. So some studios like generalists and they want senior level generalists because it's a person who can do beginning a pipeline to finished shot. And other studios, they want individuals focused and exclusively expert level, you know, leveled up expert level in that one specific niche that they're hired to do.
Exactly.
Daniel's got to go, right? So
yes.
See you, Daniel.
See you, everybody. Bye, Thanks for joining us.
And that being said, I think we have time for one, maybe two. There's two questions I want to answer. What were we going to say? Sorry, Ben.
No, I just happened on this, and I think it's really important because I've heard from a lot of students is they get overwhelmed by that. Like, oh, do I have to learn everything? Or even Chris has mentioned there in the question, there was a question about how many skills do you need? Do I need to be good at a computer? Do I need to be good at art? Like all of these things, just you got to, like I always tell people, you got to start from the beginning. And though we keep saying you got to learn all these different things, is you can't learn everything at once. You learn things sort of one class at a time, one step at a time. And it's very easy to get overwhelmed when you start these courses, because the first thing you hear is like, oh, well, this is what an animator does, but we're focusing on something else. And just know that that we talk about these things as crazy complex, but the only way you can do this is by sort of starting off with each course and sort of at the beginning. And you don't need to have those skills, that you don't need to be good with a computer, because maybe you'll never find that you feel like you're good enough. But the idea is that we work with people from all levels to teach you how to learn those things in ways to be effective. So as much as we talk about doing all these things, keep in mind we're very aware you got to start at the beginning, and so this is the place to do that.
And that's the simple fact. Every single person that's on this panel, anybody you'll meet in the industry, we all started somewhere. Mm-hmm. And each step that you take forward is what's going to eventually land you in that career path that you choose. So ultimately, it is a big kind of open, scary world. But at the same time, if you're laser focused and you choose your battles and you focus on what it is you want to learn, each step it'll be a specific step. And then when you achieve and beat that challenge in what you're trying to learn, then it's another step after that. So it's not a big picture where you need to know every single thing to be able to survive. It's just, it comes from life experience, starting somewhere and working your way into something. Every one of us will never ever say, hey, I've achieved the upper echelon level, I don't need to learn anything anymore. That's so not the case. And in fact, if you say that in your career, I'm fairly certain that means your career is over. Mm-hmm. And that's a kind of a cataclysmic statement, but it's true, because the evolution of our industry is that it's constantly changing, it's constantly evolving. Every day is sort of a new challenge. And regardless of whether you became a compositor or an effects artist or an animator or a lighter or whatever you chose in visual effects, the software, the techniques, the experiences, the production, everything changes. So being able to adapt and evolve with it is what is extremely critical to surviving and moving forward in a productive, lucrative, and rewarding career in visual effects.
I couldn't have said it better myself, Sean. Thank you so much. One last question here. We forgot to answer by accident, but someone asked, are the career prices monthly or yearly? Typically, when you do see salaries posted, they're posted in yearly salaries. But that's one of the things that does fluctuate depending on the country you're in, and even sometimes the studio you work at. But we will have some of those details within that career guide that we'll be sending you to your inboxes soon. Awesome. Well, that's it for all the questions. We answered all of them. 57 questions. Amazing. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you all to our panelists who have joined us today, and also our course advisor in the background, Brenda. She's been answering questions the whole time while we've been talking. So thank you so much, Brenda. Thank you all to our team here internally. Thank you everyone for joining us and watching. And remember, first person to sign up for one of our courses and enroll will get that nice prize, a 1-year subscription to Footage Crate. That's footagecrate.com. Thank you all so much. And we hope to see you soon in the Slack community. See you later, everyone. Have a great night or morning, wherever you are in the world.
Great, guys. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.